Hello everyone, this is a quick interlude before we start our lecture. We had a minor snafu with our lecture schedule at the start already because the original recording of what was supposed to be a lecture 2 in this series was compromised and recorded without audio, so I had to record an accelerated version of that part, and we will skip a bit on more extended example of simple Bayesian models, and we will directly move to those deeper in the course. Hopefully that won't be any difficulty for you to use later. Perhaps at some later time I will record that missing lecture and put it also somewhere in the list. Thanks for listening. Okay, without further ado, let us consider our continuation of what we are doing in Bayesian analysis course. Previously we did some initial comparison between machine learning and statistical modeling. Now we'll try to understand what Bayesian computation and what Bayesian inference is all about. So at first we need to understand that Bayes' theorem and Bayes statistics is about updating our state of belief, about updating our knowledge. Because in the general conception, Bayes' rule says that probability given new data is proportional to the product of our initial probability and the likelihood of data happening under condition that this event happens. So in practice, we have certain initial belief about parameters of interests or values of interests that we express as a distribution, give us as our prior information about what's going on. Then we have a function that allows us to consider how well our data fits our initial preconceptions, our considered values of the model. That function is called likelihood. The product of those gives us is proportional to the posterior distribution. That is the distribution of what are the parameter values given the data. And this mathematically is a very simple rule, simple consequence of probability of joint probability theorem, but it is the Bayes rule. Generally, remember, we have our initial preconception, our prior understanding of what is the process. We have a method of finding how likely our data was generated by that process, and that gives us an posterior, that is updated information about what our quantity of interest is given the data that we've observed. So, to keep with terminology, prior says what is plausible before seeing the data. This is a very important aspect because it may get be tempting to encode some information from the data in our prior information, and don't do that. Likelihood is what data are expected under these assumptions, under given value of parameter theta, what kind of values of y we are expecting. And finally, updated uncertainty about after seeing the data. We had uncertain understanding of what's going on. We had understanding how data is being related to those parameters. And finally, we get how our uncertainty changes after seeing the data. Bayes statistics gives us a distribution over the unknowns. It doesn't give us a single best estimate, single value, which is a typical approach in either machine learning or classical statistics. We get the distribution of information, where do we think that the values are. And it is a natural method of propagating uncertainty through predictions and decisions, because having probability distribution of unknown values, we can then transfer that to get the distribution of predicted values or utility functions. What is important that while numerically often we have a situation that prior can lead to exactly the same result as penalizing classical statistical model or a machine learning model. But this is not the same. The understanding lying underneath is not the same, because prior is an explicit assumption about what are the plausible values of what we understand about the process. Penalty just keeps us somewhere for convenient computation. Prior set us in location in the parameter space where we expect the values to be. And that implies consequences for the data, because understanding where the parameters are gives us information what kind of data are we expecting. And that implies consequences for the data, because having understanding where we expect the parameters to be gives us also the expectation of where the data, what kind of data can arise. And in that generally keeps in the sense that Bayesian inference is about considering the posterior distribution and not a single parameter value, because from that distribution we can generate new parameters that can be then used to generate new data and observe predictive performance, observe how our model fits and corresponds to actual observations. And this is very advantageous if we want to have some interpretability in our model, because assumptions in our model become explicit by stating them through the language of prior distributions and likelihood formulations. And using simulation tools, that is, getting new values sampled from our posterior predictive distribution or from prior predictive distribution, allows us to test how our understanding and how our data are leading to representation of model. And moreover, this is useful because this simulation approach, that is using the distribution to generate new data, allows us to revise our models when they do not fit the reality. Because our model is not to fit to the data, is to create a model that will be able to generate a data that is corresponding to what was actually observed. And we'll now do a tiny example that will try to show how data arises and how we understand the prior distribution, and then use posterior distribution to combine them into updated bits. And our example will be from spelling correction. Spelling correction is an interesting case because this is something that arose in the context of typing. First on using the typewriters, then using computers. Now we often use phones which have certain differences. However, what is interesting is that in order to reliably see what words should be written instead of those that were actually written, we need to measure some kind of way. And the interesting approach here was to introduce the keyboard metrics that were used to see how far away given word is from the known word, under the assumption that the distance on the keyboard is small. That is, how far away our writing on how likely is to mistype a single character that was close to the one that we wrote. So the idea is that we are observing a possibly misspelled word and we want to infer what actual word was intended to be. So our data is the string that might contain typos. Then we have certain candidates, a small set in this case, of plausible intended words. those words are usually generated, especially using those keyboard metrics, finding something that is existing words that are under the metric sense close to the things that was actually written. And finally, we want to pick what is the correction and report the uncertainty of how likely it is. So perhaps list few possibilities ranked by their probability. So let's assume that we've observed a string HTE, and we see that we have few possible candidates like D, hate, or maybe hit. So which is most likely to be intended? So we are observing the string. Our likelihood is using the keyboard metrics, so seeing how the typo process comes here, so what kind of, how likely is given word to be written. And our candidates have certain base rates when writing English language. It's more often to have hate or hit or D, which have certain base rates of writing. And that can be assigned as using the word frequency in the language or in texts that are being considered a base as a prior distribution of probabilities of given words. Then our posterior will be the product of those two functions, giving us the probability that we wrote D, hate, or hit, assuming that what was actually written was H, T, E. So it is obvious that likelihood is certain intuitive situation, and writing it in this case is just to find something that represents the data, the actual typing process to be close. What is perhaps interesting for somebody, the entire idea of typometrics in the classical sense was assumed that you were writing without looking. No contact, no looking writing. That is based on the idea that you have those tiny bumps on F and J that are used to place four fingers on them. That you start with left hand with index finger on F and right hand on index finger on J, and then you are typing without looking. That is, your fingers should find appropriate letters when it happens. This was important when people were doing a lot of manual writing using typewriting era, and it was more relevant in English language because in with Polish diacritic science those metrics were much more difficult to create. Either way, there are certain likelihoods of certain words being written in one or another way. So, in the case of prior intuition, we just assume that we have a corpus of texts and we see how given words are frequent in that corpus, and that allows us to explain which words are more common than other. Because if two candidates give the same likelihood of given typo, it is much more, it should be, the one that is more common should win, or at least should be ranked higher in this situation. And prior encodes this base rate information explicitly. So our posterior intuition is combining both of those things. It balances how well this candidate observes explains the observed typo, and on the other hand, how this candidate is plausible by itself. And our result is a graded belief. It gives us the probabilities of sequence of probabilities of given words that could be written, would be intended, given that the certain word was written. And our posterior can be used to select an answer, or can be used as a decision aid. So, for example, we could provide a single correction, that's how most autocorrect mechanism works, and could provide us with uncertainty-aware output, which also happens in autocorrect, that we are given few options of which word we wanted to use. So we are asking user if we are uncertain. Generally, the idea is to defer decisions if stakes are high. Not like using an OpenClaw agent and giving it a production environment with full autonomy, because important decision should be deferred to the user. So this example shows us that in likelihood we are having an assumption about data generating process. Intended word can generate different types of typos. Prior gives us the assumptions about base rates of words that can happen in the considered language. Posterior is the updated uncertainty after observing the data. Prior had the uncertainty of which words are more likely. Posterior is which word was likely given what was actually written. So Bayesian outputs in this sense can give us support in decisions under uncertainty. To wrap up, first of all, modeling goals are driving the method choice. Depending on what we do, predict, explain, or make decisions, we use different types of models, and different models can be successful. The fact that something has a predictive quality doesn't mean that it explains what is actually going on. Moreover, uncertainty must be evaluated. We need to see how the uncertainty shapes during our computation. In Bayesian modeling, we are joining the explicit assumptions with coherent and updating using our data, and seeing a possibility of simulation gives us the way to see how data is being created and how our model corresponds to that data. Machine learning and Bayesian or generally statistical modeling are often complements and not competition, because they have different application and they can be used for different things. Generally, I would recommend to read, we have a book of Gelman and co-authors, Bayesian Data Analysis 3. This book is freely available on the publisher website because it's currently not being renewed anymore. There is the book by Richard McElrath, Statistical Rethinking, which is a great book to learn Bayesian statistics by yourself. However, it is in R, almost. It uses a lot of code, and this code is in R. However, all those examples are being reworked by community, and they are available in Python, in different R frameworks, and lots of other things. So it's really easily transferable. And of course, I would recommend using Stan User's Guide, because it has a lot of practical modeling patterns and diagnostic guidance, which is created by Stan development team. And I strongly recommend being familiar with it whenever you use Stan. Moreover, there are certain works by Michael Betancourt, especially Conceptual Introduction to Hamiltonian Monte Carlo, to understand how it works, but a lot of writing for his upcoming book are available at his personal website. Aki Vettari has done a great work on predictive model comparison and Leeuwenhoek estimation, which we will move further in the course. Strongly recommend reading it if you want to understand what's going on. And of course, the original Stan paper by Ben Carpenter and co-authors, which explains what actually happens inside Stan in a relatively brief form. Maybe slightly out of date, but general ideas are still sound. Thank you, and so that's all. Thank you very much for listening, and see you on the next lecture.